If you would like to support this podcast, subscribing to the channel and sharing with others is a free way to do so. You can also leave feedback in the comments below or join my Discord. Disclaimer: this podcast is largely based on experience and opinion. Your own may differ. Please be respectful if you'd like to voice this. Also keep in mind this season was recorded in July and August of 2022, so information may be outdated or the guests may have differing opinions in the future. Welcome back, chat! We're going to be addressing probably one of the biggest subjects for this season, and I'm really excited about it because we have said some really amazing things in the episodes before this that I think will flow over into this one really well. But before that, I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves one more time and kind of say who they are so that people who may not remember or may be new to the podcast know who you guys all are, what your voices sound like, and all of that stuff. So if you guys would.
I'm Holy Azure. What's up?
KAHMEENA. Hope everyone's having a great day.
Check.
All right, fine, I'll go. I was waiting for Globe. My name is Chef. I'm a commander on Fort Aspenwood, and whoever Fort Aspenwood happens to be linked to. Been playing for about 3 years, commanding for about 6 months.
Hey, you should know I'm last, and also, hey, I'm Globe.
Okay, with introductions out of the way, we're going to be discussing a really important subject today. It's lack of world versus world command. And this isn't a subject that is just a world versus world issue. It's a Guild Wars 2 issue in general, I feel like. But we're just going to be trying to cover the world versus world end of things and why we think that there's this lack of commanders, why they're a dying breed, or why there's people who are burning out in commanding and not commanding anymore, why they just new commanders aren't tagging up. All of that stuff, hopefully we'll all be able to fit it in. We've spent all season talking about commanding in world versus world, so now it is time to figure out why new commanders are not tagging up, why they're a dying breed, as Indo says. So I'm going to throw it over to Holy and ask you generally why it is you think there are less and less commanders every year.
It's a mixture of many different things, I think, personally. Number one, this is a dead game. Game's irrelevant. Number
So
two,
True.
it's a population issue. 9 of players are playing world versus world because it's an old game and there's no interesting updates to world versus world. And this is proven because every time there's a huge world versus world balance patch, or every time the beta alliances occurs, every single map is queued up, like even way more than what it is usually on Friday nights for reset. Number 3, the community. The community is at fault why there's not more world versus world tags. When we're talking about a lack of world versus world commanders, we're talking about public commanders specifically. There are a bunch of private squads, private commanders. They're there, you just can't see them. I know they're there. I see them. I see all those green dots walking together. And then what was that, 3? Number 4 is ANET. ANET is also at fault for why there's a lack of world versus world commanders. Not too much. That's like probably like the last reason, like the least impactful reason. But there's just no there's nothing like rewarding for world commanding. Like I know you get like extra pips, but that's about it. But I mean they gotta do something to like award the people that take the time to tag up for world versus world. And I think that's pretty much the 4 main reasons. I definitely want to like focus on number 3, the community. The reason why the community is at blame is because the community is sometimes toxic. They bully new commanders. And that's why I said in a previous episode, you need to have thick skin when you're doing World versus World. You need to be able to take on the heat because people will call you out and shit talk you in map chat or team chat or whatever. I mean, there are ways to avoid all this, and that's by turning off chat or whatever, or just by ignoring them like I do. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Other than that, we could utilize like people like more Wolvie World trainers, like commanding training. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll leave it
Yeah.
at that.
Okay. I kind of thought that it was interesting what you said with the whole reward thing, because World vs. World is the only game mode in Guild Wars 2 that get, like, as a commander, you get some sort of incentive to command, and even that doesn't seem like enough. That's obviously not where we're going to lead the conversation, because rewards is a huge subject that could take up a whole season itself. So I'm going to throw it over to Globe and see what Globe wants to say on the whole, why do you think there is a lack of commanders subject?
Well, I definitely disagree a bit with the points given here, mostly because from my experience starting out, there haven't actually been much toxic occurrences that I've been met by. Even to counter this, I literally was approached by a series of people from VG, the guild. Shout out to you guys. I'm doing Wing One today dedicated to you. And they are literally so helpful every single time when I lead. At least one of them joins. There's, literally just a few people usually on support classes, which World vs. World does lack. And literally just help around, look at logs. Hey, what could have you done better there? Were you focusing on your class? Did you avoid the bombs? Like, they are so helpful every single time, and I appreciate that. Therefore, I would say that community-wise, this can be an issue for some people. However, I feel like it definitely isn't as major as people would think.
I kind of wonder, before you go on, if you are the outlier or if you're the norm. Because I know specifically, I was there the first time that KAHMEENA tagged up, and there was a lot of people, or I guess I couldn't say there was a lot of people in map chat, but there were some people in map chat that were saying some rude comments. It might be an NA thing, but KAHMEENA just clapped right back, and then they stopped doing that type of thing. So I kind of wonder if that's the outlier or if it's the norm. I always err on the side of it's never as toxic as we think it is, but I do think there is a layer of toxicity that as a community we need to address, especially in terms of new commanders. Because I think if you are tagging up, new or vet, you should have some respect, because there aren't a lot of people that are willing to tag up, and honestly, without tags, World versus World is kind of in shambles, right? Like, people don't know what to do unless you're on mag and you just cloud everything, So I would be interested to know if other people in listening to this on YouTube, if you had the same experience to Globe. But other than that, I'm gonna throw it back to Globe because I rudely interrupted, and let him continue on with what he's saying.
Carry on quietly, please carry on. Okay.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Carrying on though, I mean, maybe I am the outlier, maybe that is true. However, I do feel like some stuff as it is definitely alright, at least with the helpful side of the community that you get. However, I mean, comparing it to the other game modes even, like rewards, you actually do get something for commanding in World versus World. In PvP, there's no commanders. And PvE, you can command, but the only thing that it provides is you're just probably gonna win the meta, no matter if you command or not. In the instance of something like Dragon's End, which is a hard meta, is all I'm gonna say. You usually just join another commander tag, or just literally wait for someone else to tag up, because there is plenty of people. you can of course stack up, and personally that's easier. But someone who hasn't started commanding, I believe that it is harder to start in PvE than World versus World, where you do actually get something out of it. And then there is also the thing of the updates balance and so on. Like with the recent notes that we got from ANET, I actually do believe that World versus World might not have gotten the attention that they needed, but they should or will be getting that soon, regularly, if not as regularly as PvE. Therefore, putting that onto why there is no commanders is not the best in my opinion. I reckon what it does come down to, however, is literally just, hey, you want to command? No, because I don't know anything. I'm just here to follow. That kind of mindset, which is something we've talked about last episode.
A note to listeners, this episode was recorded after the CMC and Roy stream about the October 4th balance changes, but before that patch came out. What's it like in the new meta? Let us know in the comments.
I like the robot voice, I have to say. Very nice.
Dude, I did that live. That's not even edited in.
Perfect. Okay, that actually is a good disclaimer. Okay, so you think it's mindset. Holy thinks it's kind of like a menagerie of different like outside influences that kind of like can be clumped together, and what's the word I'm looking for? And they influence whether or not people want to tag up or continue tagging up and stuff like that. Chef and KAHMEENA, I would like to know your opinions on this before we kind of continue on with the conversation.
So
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll go, I guess. So yeah, from me experiencing a little bit, although I'm primarily an I will definitely say that Globe is definitely an outlier here. Even just
Come on.
even just 2 days ago, not even where I am, I made one bad call and I got basically attacked because basically the enemy did something I did not expect them to do, and they died for it. And I was like, that shouldn't have happened. And I didn't tell people to push. And so when I told people to back off because I was afraid they were going to push into us, but they just kind of split up and then died, I was like, oh, that was why? Okay. And so I got told, bad call, bad leader, you shit. So this is continuously even to this day. But the thing is that I like to do is what Quietly said is I like to clap back at people and then they shut up.
This is true.
So
I've seen it.
I'm
a witness.
Zero problem. I have zero problems clapping back at anybody who says anything. So it's definitely still here. And I have people message me, thanking me and sending me mail, being like, thank you. I know somebody who literally said, I don't do this anymore because of people and dealing with people. And so it's so nice to have somebody that's willing to do it. So I 100% believe one of the big problems is community. And I get it because you want to win. You don't like dying. You don't want to lose. You don't want to lose fights. And if you lose fights, you leave. But I 200% think that one of the big problems of not having command is toxicity. And people don't know how to defend themselves. Like another thing too, people just take, they just take it, and then, they get upset. Like, there's times when you just need to tell people that, blank off, essentially. Or as I like to say, you know what? Here, take my tag. I literally tell that to people all the time. I say, you want to do it? Here, take it. And then they shut up immediately. They're like, no, okay, never mind. Nope.
This is the best excuse. I mean, if they do take it, that's another commander, isn't it?
Yeah,
Win-win.
that's right. Like, I would gladly do it. I'm not going to say anything. If you want to take it, you think you're hot shit, then please take it. You think you can do better? I will gladly give it to you. I get a break then, huh? All right, I get to chill. Like, I do it to help people. I do it so that because I came on FA and stuff during my time, and nobody was tagging up, and everyone was running around not knowing what to do, and I said, F it, I'm gonna do it, and help people. And I have increase people's enjoyment of the game mode, and that's what I do. So, but there's some people that are very toxic, and you got to know how to deal with them. You got to have either thick skin, like Holly said, or you just know how to deal with them, or just completely shut it off, or even like I wouldn't go as far as say like mute them, but like they might do good call outs, but you need to know how to deal with them. If you can get over that hurdle, you're gonna get over a lot of, problems. I know a lot of people just can't do that. And as I said in previous episodes, not a lot of people have the mindset to be a leader in the first place.
Jeff?
There's not everybody that wants to. So there's some people who just want to follow, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody needs to be a leader,
Yeah.
and that's understandable.
That's true. True. We need more commanders, but we're not going to force people to command, is kind of what I'm hearing there. Jeff, do you want to chime in?
I'm really conflicted on a bunch of stuff. I'm gonna take the rare support globe stance and say that world versus world is actually not that toxic, but I think that also comes back to like the way that I approach commanding. And the way that I approach commanding is that by virtue of me running closed, I know part of the problem, I don't really pay that much attention to TeamSpeak while I'm commanding. Like the most common stuff that I'll see that could be classified as toxicity would be like, oh, we have a tag here, but we lost SMC. Thanks, tag. And it's like, look, on FA, 80 to 90% of commanders on FA are fight commanders. We don't give a care about SMC. We would rather let SMC flip so that we can take it back and get more world XP. And so I'm, sitting here trying to process the discussion that we're having about toxicity. I wonder if part of the issue of this toxicity discussion is that as commanders, we are paying too much attention to people who want us to command a different kind of squad than the squad that we're commanding, right? So we've talked about all these different kind of groups in World versus World. You can roam, you can duel, you can fight, you can zerg, you can PPT. And each of those different kinds of playstyles has a different goal. But as a commander, you're only really responsible for what you want to do with your squad. You don't have to do everything, nor should you do everything. But there's going to be people in team chat who want you to play the game in X way when you want to play the game in Y way. And I just don't really pay that much attention to those people.
But the thing is that it's not just.
Oh man, see, I don't get it in squad chat. So when I'm tagged up on Mondays, because that's my public tag day,
you're close squad.
People be like, no, I run open on Mondays. So when I'm running open on Mondays, and people are like, oh, we should probably defend X, and I'll be like, no, I don't want to defend X. Like that's not what we're doing tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you set the. That's what I like to do. I like to set the precedent. There's people like what I just said earlier. Is my example. Not like a team chat.
I don't know. Usually, I just fucking kick them out of squad. No, you might have to edit that. Sorry, language.
I don't do that. It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's just that is a common occurrence.
Yeah, but like I mean, I guess my question is why. Like we meme about the fact that commanders do it for the realm. Like, oh, we capped SMC for the realm. Let's go. But you don't command for the realm, you command for you. It's a game. You're supposed to have fun playing it. If you're subjecting yourself to negative experiences for the sake of a point system that is only used to dictate matchups once a week, I would argue that your priorities for commanding are misplaced. This is supposed to be a hobby. It's not supposed to be a job.
Because I mean, I wouldn't say that just because that's a thing of winning. Some people want to win, they want to win the week. That's what winning is to them, not individual fights, but the overall war. So, like, you can lose battles in a war, but, still want to win the war. They think of it as a war every week.
So, I'm actually going to steer the conversation a little bit back because I think we're getting into a different kind of subject at the moment. The issue that I'm seeing here, Chef, with the conversation that you're trying to portray, I do agree with you. I think that commanders are looking for outside influences a lot. For new commanders, though, who are learning the game mode, those outside influences are really important because it's the feedback you're going to get in order to learn how to command, right? Especially when you're learning something new, at least for myself. I'm not sure about others. I like to get feedback from people around me. So when I command, eventually I don't command right now. So like, let's go with PvP. When I started PvPing, I ended up seeking out a friend to give me tips. I VOD reviewed with a friend, and they said, okay, well, you know, this is good, this is bad, this type of thing. With World versus World for new commanders, they might not have that sort of like support system, so they look to team chat or they look to their squad for this type of, okay, what was good, what was bad. And instead of getting positive feedback, there's this layer of toxicity in World versus World where the most negative people tend to be the loudest people in the Guild Wars 2 community most of the time. We see it on Reddit all the time, right? Like, no offense to you, Reddit, but a lot of you are pretty, like, people are afraid of Reddit, honestly, at this point.
Yeah, Reddit, if you're hearing this, bleep you.
Like, it's tends to be the people who have negative opinions tend to be the loudest. So as a newer commander, this toxicity and this negative layer of people is extremely important, I think, in my opinion. I'd like to know your response to that. Like, would you say commanders, like new commanders, don't pay attention to team chat still, and like try to seek out people who will give you better feedback? Or because I know in the last episode it was mentioned to kind of pay attention to team chat and like take feedback and stuff like that, and like see what you're doing wrong and what you're doing right. As a new commander, you may not know what you're doing wrong and right, so you look to others, right? So I'd like to know yours to that kind of thing.
I would say that not all feedback is good feedback. Like, just because someone says something that you should have done doesn't mean it's actually something that you should have done. And I guess the way I would cast it towards new commanders, because you're right, I kind of got off topic, that's my bad. The way I would cast it towards people who are new commanders, people who are wondering why there aren't that many commanders, is I think that a lot of people don't necessarily make that distinction. They think that if feedback is being given, they're like, oh, well, that's a thing I should have done. And that's not true. If you're someone who's just starting to command, you should know what you want to get out of the experience, what kind of commander you want to be, what your goals. Do you want to win a match? Do you want to have fun with your friends? Do you want to, grind out UD or build legendary armor? You're the only person who's going to know what your goals are. People in team chat do not know. People in team chat know their goals, and they know what they would like to have done. And you can let that influence the decisions you make, or you can let it not influence the decisions that you make. But I think there's definitely a bit of information selection that goes on, where you prioritize things that you care about and that you think are interesting and important, and things that you think are not that important, where you would disregard that feedback.
So what you're saying is that take the feedback with a grain of salt.
Be the commander that you want to be. Don't be the commander that someone else wants you to be.
Also, to build upon this, I never had this when I started. Who to go to, or anything. I kind of just learned it from my past experiences playing these types of games, from like Camelot, etc. But if you ever need anything, or you want tips or whatever, I'm here too.
I'm pretty sure that goes for all of us as well.
Yeah, I mean that goes for everyone here. I don't think that's, but it's just I wanted to let people know, because it's one of those things that just like, if you're one of those people that are like quietly who want that, like, I want like to be told, hey, what I do good or whatever, we're here. So
yeah, definitely. If you do really need feedback, like contact KAHMEENA first, and then the rest of us.
I mean I don't mind. That's what I like to do. I like to help people.
Yeah.
So.
I wouldn't even say that. I would say, at this point we're at episode 9. You've listened to each of us talk about our commanding styles. Get in touch with the commander who plays closest to the way that you want to play. Reach out to them, figure out what their tips are for their particular style of commanding.
Yeah, honestly, I like that. But we're gonna do advice for starting out next episode, so I'm gonna steer us back.
Yeah, this is like turning into the wrong episode.
I know. I'm gonna steer us back again.
That's not a bad thing. That's a perfect way to segue, basically.
Yeah, but I do have one more question I want to ask before we kind of like disappear into the next episode.
I've also still got like a why are there no commanders point that I want to make.
Okay, you go with your point, and then if it doesn't cover my question, then we'll go my question. But I have a feeling that it might. Okay, Chef, shoot.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
So for this one, why are more people not commanding? Shout out Xpandas, who I've been watching on Twitch a bit recently. He's been putting out good content, and one of the things that he's talking about is how hard it is to recruit. And this
Yes.
applies to both public tags and private tags.
Yes.
World versus World has a diminishing player pool. And unlike other game modes where we are all on a shared server, World versus World is still on old fractured server architecture, where you can only play World versus World with the people who are on your server. And we also have a link system, where there is a host server and a link server, and that changes every 2 months. And my thought on this whole thing is that one of the reasons why people don't tag up is because the World versus World community is actually like really fractured. You'll play with people on a link for 2 months, and you'll put in a lot of work at like, you know, getting to know these people, playing together, having fun, and then relinks happen, and you might not see them again for like a year and a half. And that makes it really hard to build an established group of people who you're playing with and commanding with.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that definitely. I'm still struggling to get close squads up for my own like kind of already every single 2 months. It's like introduce myself, do everything, get accommodated to people.
Yeah, I know it's not
Oh.
exactly the episode topic. Like, again, I promise I'll rein it back in, but it's virtually impossible to start a new World versus World guild right now. It's impossibly hard because everyone has their guild already. And
Yeah.
they can't join other people because they're server locked.
We need alliances ASAP.
They're working on it, so
I know,
that's
yeah.
that's
TM.
yeah. We can cross our fingers and hope.
We know they're working on restructuring. We've had betas for that at least.
Yes, I'm hoping next year we're actually going to see a lot of progress towards that.
But yeah, so I've been watching Pandas. He's been talking about that, and I think he's dead on. It's really hard to recruit these days, and that makes
True.
it hard to command.
True. It's hard
I
to
can
find
100%.
this. Kind of ties back into another episode that we did, right? Like finding the community, finding your community, and like how communities are formed based around the commander and like the commander's mindset and the commander's play style and all of that stuff. So that definitely, I think that's a huge point, and I'm really glad you brought it up because it is really, really big. It's a huge.
Was it your idea, or did you have something
It
else?
wasn't. It wasn't. I was gonna bring up the whole natural commander versus like
Oh, okay.
unnatural commander thing again, but technically we don't really need to talk about that because we did talk about it pretty in depth last episode. But I think it is also kind of like a barrier that commanders have to go through because there's a huge misconception in the World versus World community right now that you have to be a natural leader, right? To tag up, you have to have those leading qualities, right? But it's something that you can work towards. You don't need to have it when you first start out. That's something just like commanding. It's something you need to work on, right? It's just like anything else in the game. Like learning your rotation, you need to learn how to have how to do your buttons in the right order. You also need to learn how to be a leader. So it's like all of these definitely tie in and have a little bit of a part into why there's probably this huge barrier between players tagging up and not tagging up. I also wonder, bringing it back to your point, if people are just comfortable in the groups they have, that's why they're not tagging up, because they've already found their communities. So they have their commander that they go to, that they default to, so they don't tag up themselves, right? Or they don't join new groups. So it's so hard to form communities and stuff like that.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong at all. I think you kind of hit a nail on the head as well. I think it's a combination of everything that's said. I don't think it's from, every 2 months you get a new set of people who, like, trust me, I know that one all too well, because like the last link, still people message me asking me to basically do because they miss me, right? Like it's from that to everything we talked about, the whole thing. I think all these things are toxicity to, even if it's not as profound as people think it is, it's still there and it still has an impact. And I think
It's actually insane. Like King Bullyfoot with Hate used to play on SBI years ago, like years and years ago. And we're linked to SBI right now. We'll still have people in team chat who are SBI mates who are like, yo, when's King Bullyfoot tagging up? I can't wait to play with him again. Like it's been years, actual years. And they're still like, oh, I remember him. I can't wait to play with him again.
Yeah. It is kind of like a combination of all of the different things. So like people are in communities that they like, they don't want to join other communities, they don't feel the need to tag up, or, you know, going back to the reward thing, they don't have the incentive to tag up, right? They're already like a couple of extra pips aren't going to do much for a world versus worlder, right? Especially someone who would be interested in tagging up. They can just go run with their normal tag and they can finish the chests in relatively the same amount of time. So why tag up in that sense when there's all of these different barriers holding them back too when it comes to having the confidence to do it? All that anxiety that goes into it, the toxicity that goes into it. What are some of the other things that we mentioned? Having it hard to find that community, and your commanding style not necessarily meshing with the commanding style of the community that you're already in is probably a huge one too, right? Like when you tag up, you basically have to form your own type of community, and you may have people in your current community that will come and support you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your ideas will mesh. So if they do, that's amazing, but if they don't and you want to be a different kind of commander, it's like starting from square one, and then you're missing all of that community, and you're facing that huge barrier. And it's a lot of little things that end up forming this huge wall in front of community, I feel like.
Yeah, and the reason why the community is such a big deal, you know, for people who are listening who are like, well, you talk a lot about pug tagging, like, why does it matter if you're building an established community? Even the most accomplished pug tags will still have a group of 10 to 15 regulars in their squad every night. So, like, even if you are a pug tagger, quote unquote, you're still going to be seeing the same faces, the same names, the same players, because they're just playing the same time you are.
Yeah, I have around 5 to 10 people, depending on anything or life things pop up, it can go up every. I agree with Chef 100%. That's something I really didn't think about beforehand, but he's not wrong, because I've had my struggles extremely hard. Like when we unlink in a couple of days, when we're recording this FA, not only is it like we only know like a week ahead of time, so I can't even like go and ask and get introduce myself. I have to redo this all over again.
A week ahead of time, you find out what links are the day of reset. You have like 5 hours to figure out who you're about to play with for the next 2 months.
And it's like good luck, right?
Yeah.
It with content creation, they say consistency is key, and this relink system, it kind of breaks the consistency, right? Like, and it makes things stunted and awkward and all of that stuff. We're way over like the time limit, so I actually need to cut this off. But
so a lot of this was like not on topic though, so you'll be able to cut.
I don't. Sorry, I'm clearing my throat. I don't cut anything out. I don't plan on cutting anything out. I'm gonna have the organic conversations and stuff like that. So I like to let, like, for the audience, it makes more sense if we have the natural flow of the conversation than have like a huge cut in the middle and then being like, okay, I missed something in the middle there, like what's going on. So I don't cut anything out.
Like, especially when I say like everything we talked about, honestly, is a very big important reason I at least cut out most of it, but they said more.
Yeah, I also think maybe it's kind of telling that we were supposed to talk about why more people don't command, and we spent like 75% of the episode talking about toxicity. Maybe that's one of those, like, read between the lines kind of things.
I think it was an important part of the conversation, though, to be honest, because
I also don't think it was 75%.
To wrap everything up, toxicity is part of the reason why even if toxicity isn't as big as people think, there is still the people think in there. And so that's going to be a barrier in itself. It doesn't matter what it actually is, it's how people perceive it. So if people perceive that there's a lot of toxicity towards commanders, then they're going to have that barrier of anxiety, so they won't tag up. So even if it's not as big, I don't think it's as big either. Like, I do agree with Globe. I think he's more of like an outlier in some ways, because, he was like, he had a
Thanks for reminding me.
You had such an amazing reception. Like, I really wish that there was more receptions like that. Like, if anything, it's a lesson. Like, you had this amazing experience tagging up, and all of these people willing to help you. That's what world versus world should be, right? That's what we should make it be for new commanders. The fact that you're the outlier just emphasizes the issue with toxicity and one of the barriers that commanders have to go through. So yeah, with all of these different things, I think they were all very, very important to the conversation. Even if some of them did kind of steer off topic, I think they all tied into and had a lot of relevance into why there was a lack of commanders in World versus World, or why there is a lack of commanders in general for the whole game, because this can carry over to any game mode. We see it in raids, we see some of this stuff in PvE. Like, it's not just a World versus World issue, even though we covered World versus World. So, with all of that, hopefully that was just like a general wrap up that I think all of this was relevant, and I think people should really listen and pay attention to this. I am going to say to the people listening on YouTube, thank you so much for listening to this conversation, and I really, really, really want you guys to join into this subject. If you don't join into any other subject, this is the subject that you should join into, because this is the biggest issue that Guild Wars 2 is facing at the moment. We see all of the big people coming to this realization right now. Teapot, Sneb, anyone that you talk to, they'll say we lack commanders. It's the biggest issue and the biggest subject within Guild Wars 2 right now. Like, we need more commanders, we need more people, we need to distill the confidence into people to get in there and tag up and to say, you are not going to be perfect at this right away. You just need to have the confidence to tag up, and you can be a leader. Okay, you can develop those skills. The toxicity, it's not as bad as you think. There is some toxicity, but take it with a grain of salt. Not all feedback is feedback that you want, right? Just like Chef said. And all of this stuff, I think it's super, super important. So please join the conversation, and hopefully all of the panel will spam this episode in particular to all of like their World versus World guilds, because it's really something important, and it's a message that needs to be sent out to everyone, in my opinion. But with that being said, I will talk to you next time, chats, for the last episode.